Cornyn, is a reconciliation bill like what was used to pass the big, beautiful bill the only way for Republicans to pass meaningful legislation in 2026?
Well, they broke the mold when they made John Kennedy, but he's not wrong. And I'm encouraged to see that the House is taking some first steps. The Working Families Tax Cut Act, which was the seminal piece of legislation we passed during President Trump's first year of his second term, has so much in it. And unfortunately, Democrats won't cooperate, so reconciliation may be the only way we're able to pass additional legislation. But it would help a lot if the House, given the narrow margins that Speaker Johnson has, if they were able to put together a bill. I'm confident the majority leader would put it on the floor of the U.S. Senate. But I'm waiting to see whether they can pull that off.
It seems like the framework that the House Republican conservatives are issuing today includes provisions on health care, affordable housing, and energy. Is there anything specific that you would like to see in a reconciliation bill if one came across over from the House and landed in the Senate?
Well, we did a lot to address fraud in our welfare system with making sure that only American citizens and people who are here legally are able to access things like food stamps and Medicaid and the like. And obviously, we're all aghast at what's happened in Minnesota and worried that this is going to be replicated in other places around the country. So I think there's more we can do. But, unfortunately, the Democrats are still stuck on this opposition to anything and everything that President Trump has proposed. But the president has said he wants to do away with the filibuster, the 60-vote requirement to pass legislation here. One way to do that is to pass another reconciliation bill, even with the limitations that has. But if we're able to get this done out of the House, I would welcome them sending it over here to the Senate and do more anti-fraud protection.
Let's move to international affairs, Senator Cornyn. The president today has rattled the American saber, and he has said to the activists on the streets of Iran that help is on the way. He says he's canceled meetings with the Iranian regime. I guess they had called to negotiate. We have reports that 12 to 20,000, perhaps, protesters have been slaughtered by the regime. Would you support the United States striking Iran to deal a final blow to this regime and help the people on the streets in Tehran and elsewhere?
Well, we do need to come to the aid of these Iranians, these brave Iranians who are protesting this theocratic regime, which is essentially a police state, as you know, and has been since roughly 1979 during the Iranian Revolution. President Obama did nothing when there was an uprising, and unfortunately the thugs that work for the supreme leader killed them. And that, of course, is the risk that these current protesters are taking. But President Trump seems focused on this. I'm sure he's got an array of options, some kinetic military options, maybe some others that we can do to support the protesters. But the economy in Iran is in a bucket. It's in bad shape, primarily as a result of these sanctions that the United States has put on Iranian oil. And of course, when the president got Nicolas Maduro and blockaded a lot of the shipments of these ghost fleets in Venezuela, he's begun to make some real steps towards dealing with the fragile economy there in Iran. But hopefully the best scenario would be for the Iranians to do that themselves. The problem is, coming off of a repression regime like they've been living with for these many years, it's hard to find leaders, hard to find institutions to be able to govern the country. But I'm sure the president's being presented a number of different options.
Let's talk about immigration, and let's see a little bit of this. Senator Cornyn, you recently made a trip to the border. Let's play Cut 11.
The part that I'm most concerned about or most interested in, of course, is making sure that the federal government does right by the state of Texas and Texas taxpayers. Thanks to John Thune and John Barrasso and the President of the United States, we were able to secure $13.5 billion in reimbursement for border states that filled the gap in the absence of strict border control by the federal government. And that money will now soon be flowing into the coffers the state of Texas to the tune of roughly $11 billion to do justice, which is to reimburse Texas taxpayers for stepping up and filling the gap when the federal government simply refused to do so.
Senator Cornyn, we've seen about 2.6 million deportations since President Trump came into office. About 600,000 are active law enforcement deportations. About 2 million are actually people who have self-deported. Is this deportation system happening quickly enough for you? And what are you experiencing on the ground there in Texas as it relates to interactions between the state and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, I was glad to welcome some of my colleagues to the border again. I've done this over the years just so they could become acquainted with the unique nature of our border. But it was like night and day, Scott, from about a year and a half ago. When you went there a year and a half ago, you'd still see people streaming across the border, turning themselves in and claiming asylum or being paroled into the country by the Biden administration. They made no pretense at actually securing the border. That's all changed under President Trump. The border's secure, and I think we were there to celebrate the inclusion of about $150 billion of additional support for our Border Patrol and immigration enforcement personnel. But unfortunately, it's going to take a while to clean up the mess the Biden administration created. But there are a lot of people who were under final orders of deportation who simply defied that and stayed in the country. Many of them criminals, many of them repeat offenders. And unfortunately, there are many victims here in the United States, including innocent people like Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungure, and others who were killed by illegal aliens who came into the country under the Biden administration. But we're making great progress. But no, it's not fast enough. But I know Tom Homan and his team are doing the best they can.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.